This season of the podcast is all about overcoming common challenges in the construction industry, and we're taking a unique approach with today's episode. I've asked my colleague Ian Feinberg to join me today to give you a window into what it's like to be a product manager building construction technology and what they need to think about in order to create solutions that actually work for their customers. The whole goal of a technological solution is to meet your needs. That means working within your existing workflows, allowing for collaboration, and providing you with data that you didn't even know existed, all while making it look easy, even when it isn't. Ian has a wealth of experience he draws upon, and we're excited to share that experience with you today. Hi, we're here today with Ian. Ian is actually one of my coworkers here at Trux. Ian, I'd love for you to give a little bit of a background about your experience in the construction industry.
Yeah, thank you. It's really great to be here. I have, going on 9 years now, a little over 8 years of history in the construction industry. I worked for Viewpoint construction software for much of that time, working with the ERPs specifically, and as well as the platform and system security pieces of that. I've worked directly with thousands of customers throughout my time, figuring out construction needs and giving them solutions via software.
Awesome. Now, I know that designing products for the construction industry must be a little bit different than designing for some other industries. If you're designing software for somebody that's set up and working solely out of an office, it's a little bit different than working with somebody who's going to be in and out of the field or in a very chaotic office, not something that's like go into your cubicle and be isolated for the rest of the day. What do you think makes designing products and software for the construction industry so unique?
That's a really great question. The industry has very specific business needs and processes, and where efficiency improvements is a must. Inserting anything into the existing processes that they have that isn't going to help with that is going to always be problematic. So determining where change is both needed and will be accepted by the employees and the business is where the most of the uniqueness comes into play in this industry. Every business is different from each other.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think one of the things that you touch on there is where people can manage to fit this into their existing process. And this is a pretty hands-on industry. Knowing how hands-on people are in their jobs, one, does that present any unique challenges when you're thinking about, okay, how am I going to make sure that they're able to do this activity in technology when they're in this environment? But also, does that hands-on nature of the work that they're doing make it more likely that they'll want to be hands-on with the technology and with, your side of things? Are they providing more feedback to you than maybe some other customers would? Or do they have more specific, requirements or needs out of a software tool than somebody else might when they're thinking about, purchasing a software solution online or through a salesperson? They might just expect it to be out of the box. Is that the same in construction, or is it different?
Definitely the same as well. I mean, many of the customers expect solutions to be out of the box and to be able to solve their needs. The fine point here is that every customer or business is really unique from each other, and their busy seasons and the time they have the opportunity for change is also very much different from each other. Being behind or not understanding your tools really gives your competitors opportunity and your customers doubt, and so finding the time to make sure that you can get the right tools, understand the right tools, and bring them into play into your business to make you more efficient is the only real way to keep up with, the changing environment that we have right now. Also, you want to be able to learn as much as you can about what you're utilizing. And I've seen through the industry that everybody has turned into hands-on. It doesn't matter if you're a controller, if you're an IT director, if you're a foreman, a project manager, or whatever it may be. I've had them all at my past conferences, asking questions, learning how to utilize the software, and sharing with each other tricks and ways to do it better.
Yep, that makes total sense. I think this is an industry too that talks a lot to one another. So what I've found in my experience is that not only are people maybe doing some research online about who to go to, who to trust for a software solution, but they're also talking to their peers. And so even the process of like thinking about using a software, never mind like the actual day-to-day of using it, but just thinking about maybe utilizing it seems to be more of a collaborative process, like maybe within their own organization, but maybe speaking peer-to-peer, one controller talking to another controller, or one foreman talking to another foreman. That kind of makes a big difference in knowing that somebody else out there has had success using a tool is going to mean something to people more in this industry than maybe in some other industries.
100%. Having the opportunity really to share, what you're doing and learn what others are doing in your same business is very beneficial. It was very surprising to me in the very beginning how much they shared with each other. But there is so much, in common where you can help each other that it happens so often, and it's really cool to see.
Yeah, definitely. One of the things that, I'm not sure if you've heard it, but I feel like I've heard it a bunch is construction is, behind the eight ball when it comes to technology. They're not using technology. They're not leveraging, tools to their full advantage. And I mean, I guess in a sense, when you look at the grand scheme of things, like, no, maybe technology hasn't made its way into construction like it has in some other industries, but I feel like the fault is not placed on the industry players there. Like it shouldn't be. It's something where we have technology that, one, was never initially designed for construction. That's been kind of put in their hands as the only option or only tool available to them, but wasn't really purpose built for what they're doing. What kind of impacts does that make for a company when they're using a technology, but they're having to kind of jerry-rig it and make it work for them when it wasn't actually initially designed to do what they need it to do?
Yeah, that really puts people in a box. I've seen that repeatedly throughout as well, where they had a solution that was implemented that doesn't really meet what they're doing as a business, but to get off that solution would be very hard for them, as well as learning something else would be very hard for them. So they adapt their business to meet a lot of these solutions and makes themselves less efficient, and processes much harder, as well as that puts a lot of subject matter expertise into certain people's heads as well, and makes it very siloed. And so having solutions that meet the construction needs, that can adapt with the construction needs, and understand the pain points is really a must. If it's just, everybody had Excel. And if it's something that is worse than their ability that they had previously, they're going to ditch it along the way or not fully adopt.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction, right? It's one thing to have technology to leverage it in your in theory, but it's another to actually get people to adopt it and use it every day and actually view it as an asset, not just something they're forced to use. And one of the things that I always am struck by is the different types of technology that exist in the industry today, and how kind of each department might have their own tool. It's not necessarily something where everything is streamlined, where you can connect multiple teams and multiple processes together. And I think that goes back exactly to what, we were talking about a second ago, where some of these things were not purpose built for the industry. What kinds of impacts do you see that like siloed approach to technology, where there's not necessarily one provider that's helping the entire company, but there might be 2 or 3 different technologies that have come in to do only one specific portion of the overall process or overall flow of information?
Yeah, that provides a lot of manual input, a lot of duplication of work, or as well as, you have to hire an entire team to manage the data, to figure out time to make sure that the data is correct and performance is correct and that people are getting everything that they need. There's a lot of talented individuals and a lot of these corporations that can make a lot of, homegrown solutions that can meet a little bit of the need they have. Unfortunately, a lot of those don't scale out, and it makes it, really hard for organizations to be able to meet their needs anymore. So having a solution that is maintainable, scalable, and not just homegrown in a lot of cases has shown to be the best, where it's not manual input. You can integrate, it has all the endpoints, and it's something that you can trust, that you don't have to worry about security-wise as well. Yeah,
no, that's a great point. And I think sometimes, I admire the people that are doing homegrown solutions in one sense, because they see the need, they see the challenge, they know that maybe there's not a ton of options out there that are going to meet all of the needs of their business. So they're like, we'll just do this ourselves. We're can-do people. We'll get it done. But I think your point about being able to be scalable is huge. Like, if you can build something that meets the needs of today, that's great. But does it end up kind of putting you in a box later on where you feel like you're stunting your growth as a company if the software can't, scale with the growth of the business? Or, is it something where you end up at a point where you're like, okay, I think we need more, but then now people have gotten used to this solution and you can't get them to think about getting off of it or to switch to another provider that could help, grow and scale the business for you. It ends up maybe putting people into an awkward position. And a lot of the homegrown solutions, they're not brand new. They maybe were started, a couple of years ago, maybe have worked to this point in time, but in the coming years could end up presenting a challenge to people. If companies are at that point where the tech that maybe they've either homegrown themselves or they've outsourced to somebody else is having trouble keeping up with the business or adapting to new ways that they're kind of wanting to run the company. Do you have any suggestions for them if they're thinking about maybe looking at new solutions? Like, what are some of the things they should kind of keep an eye out for?
Yeah. If you're looking at new solutions, what I would always recommend is definitely first talking with, the ones you're interested in and getting some references, especially that are, similar to what you do, your size of corporation or what you're trying to be. And then, speak with some of those references and figure out how they're utilizing the software or how they're using it for their business and how it's improving them, and start to think if that would help you as well. You're going to have specific problem points or pain points yourself. Have those ready as well and see if there's something, that both the vendor or maybe some of these references have solved themselves. Another thing to really consider long term is we know how much movement in the industry there is. There's a lot of merging of companies. There's a lot of, companies that are breaking up into a bunch of different companies at this point. And when that happens, having a software that's either homegrown or not easy to understand has become a big mess for a lot of companies. I've seen it over and over again where there's 6 or 7 different solutions once, a company has acquired a bunch of other ones, and getting data governance or the ability to use one software has taken a lot of arm wrestling and, politics to get to. I think trial is the best way. Have users who have pain points or having something that's not working for them, trying something that is, or that could, and then get their input on, A/B testing and things along that lines really gives you the best shot.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think it's also important to think about what's going to work for you today, but then try to think about 5 years down the line, try to think about, 7, 10 years down the line. Can you ask the right questions that are going to help you determine whether or not this company is going to be able to kind of adapt along with you or integrate to other solutions that you're going to need, even if it's not right now, you might need them in 2 years. So I think asking those questions is also really important. The other thing that I always feel like is really important for this industry as well, especially if people are looking for a tool that's going to try to streamline multiple different workflows into one, is thinking about it from the perspective of different roles and different jobs within the organization. So talking to dispatchers, talking to foremen, talking to the sales team, talking to your, back office team, getting everybody's opinion, getting everybody's needs ahead of time on paper can really help make sure that the solution you're gonna bring on will actually work for everybody in the team and not just one role, and have everybody else kind of annoyed that this has come into the workflow. When you're thinking about a solution and designing for this industry, I'm sure that must come to the top of your mind too. How are different roles going to interact with this technology? What are some of the things that you're considering when you're building out new solutions or new types of technology, when it comes to getting functionality or features that are purpose built and driven for a specific role within the company?
Yeah, that's another really great question. For me, I've taken just about everything, every feat I can think of and no decision or functionality, even down to the appearance, is ever done in a box. What you really want to do is, at the very least, design for the 80%. When you hard code or design for the minority, you end up changing and having to support way too much, and it never really meets the need. And so working with customers to determine the best for the majority has been my approach. Learning every workflow that you can from every specific individual to know how they're doing things, what's coming into play already, where paper is, where you can help improve, and where things may not be ideal for them. And then continue to learn like roles from other companies as well. And you start to see where the pain points are common, or areas that you can start providing solutions that are going to make it better for them. And once you start to find that little secret sauce, you work back with them to make sure that it is. Discussions, trials, proof of concepts. Everybody's always very into helping find solutions for themselves and for the industry as well.
Yeah. One of the things that always jumps to the front of my mind when I'm thinking about this topic is my early days at Trux. And, I didn't have a construction background. And so a lot of this was new for me. And when I was looking at, some of the things that we do on a desktop screen, that was like the way that I was viewing it in my head. And I was like, oh, this makes sense. This is awesome. I love this. And then when you translate that to a mobile device, it's a whole new world, right? The way that you're having to interact with a mobile screen is very different than how you interact with a desktop screen, even down to like the size of a button, or if you need to, punch in numbers. Like, thank God now we have, kind of a universal when it comes to most people's cell phone. There's the buttons right on the screen. So that kind of takes the typing aspect out of it. But getting like the placement of things, even getting colors right to make sure it stands out enough. If you're out in the sun and you're working, you want to be able to see what you need to see really quickly. Those things surprised me when I first, and they shouldn't have, but they totally did. Is that something that you are like constantly thinking about or paying attention to, is like, okay, how do I need to make sure that this is going to look the way that it needs to look for somebody that's sitting on a desktop device versus somebody that's out in the field on a mobile device?
Absolutely. Yeah, that is something that comes into play for every single solution almost that I've done. You want to make sure that if you're in the office, I heard it from both ways. Changing a lot of the things in the office to be more streamlined has created problems for me as well. A lot of the back office folks like to use things that are just their keyboard and go through things very quickly. And changes in that regard in the past has shown me that they are not too happy when you give them too many mouse clicks or whatever. In terms of cell phones and mobile devices and being out with your team or in the field or in the truck driving, absolutely having the right appearance inside of there to do your workflows. And you're not going to be able to go through many tabs or go to a bunch of different areas like you would be on the desktop. You want your devices to be able to meet your needs. And so having the same solutions available in all regards, but having the buttons in the right place, having the workflows in the right place, being able to easily get between things as you would expect to on a mobile device or a tablet is a must. You won't be able to, just like you do on other applications where you have it on your desktop and then you also have it on your phone. They don't actually look exactly alike. And that is because you wouldn't be able to do the same desktop needs on your mobile devices in the fly and have the same performance, the same thing, and be able to do it as quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. I even think about like if I'm on my desktop versus my mobile phone and I'm like nothing to do with work. I'm out, I'm filling out a form online, or I'm having to plug in shipping information for having a package sent to me. I can't stand when it's like, okay, tap here and now type all of this. Okay, now it's not going to auto drop you to the next category. So you have to tap in there. Or like if it's even something small, if it's an email field and it doesn't automatically give me the option to put like the @ symbol, I have to like switch my keyboard over to get it. Like those little things that, you don't realize until you're actually doing it yourself and you're like, oh man, this is not convenient. Those are the things that make a huge difference. I mean, it's not going to be exactly the same for construction technology, but those little things end up making a huge difference when you're thinking about somebody having to be out in the field. And this is a tool that's meant to digitize. It's a tool that's meant to streamline. It's a tool that's meant to bring more efficiency, but those little things kind of chip away at that efficiency. So if you're not thinking about it in the beginning, it ends up making a huge difference in the end.
Absolutely. One point that you said there made me think as well is, the email field, not having your lookups as well, like as you have on your desktop, and then the ability to go into something and have it find your material, or as you're starting to put in an email address and have it figure out who you're trying to do. Those are things that are very much you're used to as you're back in your desktop. But when you're on a cell phone and having to put in an entire email address or put in an entire material, having the ability to quickly get to those same data points without having to fully put in everything is a must as well.
Absolutely. Great point. I guess kind of my final question for you is, how much of your time over the past, 8-9 years have you actually spent talking with customers? Like, I feel like there's this perception sometimes that people are kind of like holed up in an office or like in a dark room, like writing code and not out in the field getting this stuff done. But I know from talking with you that you've had a wealth of experience and you've had the opportunity to meet a lot of really great people in the industry. How critical has it been for you to get out into the field and meet with people to be able to design and think about the workflows and how you can best model and mirror them within technology?
Oh, that is the most important in my role. The ability to have the hands-on, to visit the spots and understand exactly what we're trying to solve has been very key to me. Without that ability, as we've noticed during COVID, where it's been a lot more virtual, it's a lot harder to understand what you're trying to solve, especially when there's specific pain points like maybe the scale system or maybe some of these homegrown solutions. Talking to them virtually is a lot harder than being there on site, as well as, as you're trying to show all the cool and unique stuff that you're producing and the solutions you're creating, having the ability to do trade shows, expos, see the customers themselves and understand what they're trying to solve, and then to show them is immense, as well as it really helps you create your roadmap, understand, other areas for improvements and those such as you get to see what they're doing. None of us in this entire world has the ability to know everything about what we're trying to solve. And if we don't work directly with the people inside the spaces that are doing it, we'll be guessing forever. And so I definitely believe hands-on, in-person is a must, especially for a product manager. But in this field, in the construction field, it's a must every single time to have that opportunity. I haven't seen anybody in my role, succeed without having both the ability to get on a call often with customers, speak with them, understand what's going on, and try to help them, as well as do the hands-on, be there, travel out to the industry's places, go to these trade shows, and learn exactly what you're trying to solve.
Awesome. Love it. I think that's definitely the right mentality and approach to take when it comes to this. And I think it's important that people know just how passionate you are about that side of this, because it is so critical. This season on the podcast, we're doing a couple of quick questions with all of our guests. So I want to make sure to run through those with you in the few minutes that we have left. The first question is, what do you think the biggest challenge the industry is up against right now?
That timing of that question is perfect. Travel is what I would say. Finally, we were able to see customers, prospects, do these expos, trade shows again, and being completely virtual was really impossible for a lot of that. And so that was, one of the bigger challenges is the ever-changing landscape we've had over the last, year and a half plus, and how that's affected the industry.
Definitely. Where do you see the industry going in the next 5 years?
Personally, I see vast adoption of the software, how it integrates with many other solutions, including those homegrown solutions, and then that making many more jobs easier across the board. We know in this industry that there's plenty of jobs coming. The roadmap for construction companies is decades out. And so what we want to do in the next 5 years is make it easier, make it integratable, and then work to make jobs get done quicker.
Awesome. That ties well into the next question. If somebody's thinking about a career in construction or in bulk materials, what's one piece of advice you could give them?
Be ready. It's a very exciting field. There's no project or problem or solution that's the same. Opportunities are really endless. and so are many of the incredible companies that are looking for great talent. So be open, know your worth and find where you want to go.
Awesome. In terms of like insights, either for the construction industry or for the technology side of things, do you have some like trusted resources that you're going to find new information or news?
Yeah, sure. Locally, there is quite a few groups we have out here that we meet for the technology needs and go through a bunch of brown bags, as well as I'm part of a group called Northwest Construction that we do a bunch of similar type things and share a bunch of information around. I listen to many different podcasts, and then I'm involved in many industry-specific groups, and that's about where I get the insights for the industry myself.
Awesome. And then finally, if you could see somebody else interviewed on this podcast, who would that be and why?
So as I've only been at Trux a little while, I'm going to jump back to somebody also here, and I'm not sure if this person has already done it previously, but I would love to see Tom Spencer on here. His history and vast understanding of the needs of the industry, as well as many of the problems that he solved along the way, would be very much influential in this podcast series.
Awesome. He has not been on yet. And he's got a really cool background. I think his background would play nicely for this audience and where some of the things in this industry are going. So point taken. Hopefully Tom's listening. He'll be ready to go when I call him. But thank you so much for hopping on with us, Ian. It's been a pleasure. And I think hopefully this will help give a little bit of a window for people into the behind the scenes of what's happening when software is being developed for them in this industry. We're really thankful that you're able to hop on with us this morning and look forward to seeing more and more from you at Trux.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. This has been great and wonderful to do. Thank you so much.
I hope that getting a behind-the-scenes view of tech creation and construction has been helpful for you. Pros like Ian are laser-focused on creating solutions that work in the real world. Finding technology that works, is consistent, and addresses the concerns of everyone on the team isn't always easy. Doing some research online can help, and talking with your peers is a great way to find solutions that are already in use. But the best way is to connect with a few technology companies and ask them questions directly. Demo their solutions and see what makes sense for your company. Keeping in mind that finding a solution that has been purpose-built for construction and doesn't require much customization is the best way to ensure that your team will actually use the tools you bring on. Everyone is predicting that construction technology will take off even more in 2022 than it did in 2021. So now's a great time to start looking for ways that you can take advantage of the latest technology that was built with you in mind. Thanks for joining us today, and if you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe so you're notified of new episodes each week, and leave us a review. Until next week, this is your host Elizabeth, signing off.